It's my painted camera.
So, what do you think of the setup?
It's great.
I love your old man glasses. They're
Thank you.
amazing.
They also work.
Yeah, they are really old man glasses.
Better than buying a shitty old magnifier that takes up my whole head.
I was kind of surprised you didn't bring a paint light, but then I realized that you're assembling. So
That and it'd be a pain in the ass.
it's not like we couldn't drag one of these two lights like
Exactly.
right over if
We
you
got-
needed it.
We got lights.
Light we got.
All
This
right.
is some good radio right here.
This
Me
is some
crunching.
amazing radio. I
Back to
should
the
open the
beverage.
chat.
That's always good. Now I'm going to turn on my compressor. I want you to let me know how it is for sound. I think it should be fine.
Actually, that's not horrible. Oh, it gets louder.
As long as you're talking, James, it's probably fine.
That is amazing. The difference that makes, like the auto voluming.
Yes. Yeah, because it was like, oh, we better turn up this compressor sound.
Yeah.
I would say the compressor's a little loud.
A little loud?
A little loud. Yeah.
But do you have like does it gain pressure and then stop pumping at one point, or?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's still on right now.
Cool.
It's got a tank, so. But it does pop on every once in a while.
Fair enough. We'll just deal. When your compressor turns on, make sure you talk nice and loud so it dims the sound of the compressor for us.
Sure thing, will do.
That's the.
I love the close-up view of the Cheetos. That's
Yeah.
classy.
That's what this is. This is
New sponsor?
Cheeto Cam.
I wish. God, having Frito-Lay as a sponsor.
I'm sure we could get them. They just wouldn't give us anything.
See how this looks.
I'm like, sure, you can advertise for
It's
us.
terrible. Just try to see what I can do if I need to show people stuff.
You are
think I
very
may have
far
to
away from the
actually
camera.
Move
Yeah.
my computer in order to show anything.
Try putting try putting the bust right in front of the camera and see how if the camera can focus on it.
I'm just not sure if there's enough light over there. See, it's pretty dark.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll find
Okay.
find another thing to stack my computer on.
Hold the bust up to the screen to the camera again.
Sure.
Okay, so your camera is actually to your, let's say, left a couple of inches, because when you're holding that up to the camera, we can see you and him at the same time.
Yeah.
He can see it on his screen.
Oh, of course, you can actually see it. That actually,
It's just,
that's kind of scary looking.
it is great. But it's too dark to really see much of anything, so
Yeah.
I'm going to see what I can do about that.
So, do we have any kind of format, or are we just going to sit here and
we're gonna do
assemble shit?
We're gonna do no format tonight, and then we'll see what works, what doesn't, and then we'll change our format.
Well, we should have some kind of format, or else we're maybe
Well,
changing what
we'll do
works.
it. We'll do an intro.
Okay.
We'll
Are we
do
going
a
to
talking
do a little
intro.
bit of news as well, or
It can be. It's a stitch and bitch, buddy.
okay?
We literally just get to sit and talk and do some work while we're doing it. We'll talk about what we're assembling tonight, and because I think we both have things that are cool that we're working on, right?
Mhm.
So what's that?
That's the wolf. That's the swamp.
No, I meant what's the thing in the PVC or the
Oh, that is a large base for the for her.
Oh, that came with that?
No, this is, I think, weird.
That is weird. Yeah, no, you're weird.
It's weird.
You're weird.
Weird miniatures. What does it say here? 50 millimeter Victorian.
Wow. That's fancy pants.
Yeah. Well, she's kind of fancy pants, so I thought she needed a fancy pants base.
Pseudobite, Jason is lying in bed and unable to move. He's
Yeah.
been sick
He is
for
recovering.
like super sick for like 3 days.
Should get out some tools.
Oh yeah, look at there you go. That's pretty sweet.
There's two of them.
There's 3 of them.
There's 3 of them.
Too much light still.
Too much or not enough?
Still showing that in there.
Oh, crap. Can you grab the paper towel off my desk?
Can I or will I?
Both. I'm never quite sure with you. Just something to wipe my nozzle.
Well, I thought it was going to be for...
That's. You thought it was for the lightsaber? Why are you poking me with a lightsaber? Stop it. Stop it.
This is good
Stop
television.
it. Stop it. I love that. Evening gents. What makes you think that we're gentlemen? He was poking me in the head with a lightsaber.
Yeah, that's where you came in.
Those glasses add like 20 years at least. They're kind of awesome.
Well, I'm not that far from having to... Yep, that works. Oh, hey. Oh, there you go. That's good. So when you need to show off something...
Still washes it out pretty bad, but
yeah.
my camera's kind of crap, so... I should borrow my son's webcam.
Hey.
See if that works any better.
He got the Logitech C920, right?
Could be.
I think that was one I told you to buy. Oh, I got these things.
Hey.
Wow, that's really bad.
Luckily, it doesn't seem to last long.
Yeah. So they're
Nipples.
nozzles that go very, 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 very fine.
They're called noozles.
They're called noozles?
Yeah, they're noozles. Just making shit up. All right. Good evening, Mr. Fraser. How are you? We haven't seen Fraser in a while.
Yeah.
Tonight is a little bit of a looser cast for us, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be doing a... what do we wanted to call this the Paintin' Bitch, but... Painting with the Mises? I think we had a name for it. Now I
I
can't...
feel...
Does it have like a naming of contest?
Yeah, well, I feel like we had a really good name, but I cannot remember what it is.
Yeah, we'll have to ask Jason. He'll probably remember. Yeah, so we're going to be doing a different thing.
Minimum painted requirements.
There was one that was like 3 dots and a wash or something like
yeah.
that.
3 dots and a wash, or minimum painting requirements, or something like that.
No painting required, or...
Yeah, Sudabite, the back part of the base here, right here, is where the upper part... Oh, my finger, of course, is causing it to not focus correctly. But, let's see. If we can get it to focus. Yeah, the rear part of the base. Let me grab a tool. Yeah, so this rear part of this base here is smoothed out. And that's where this part sits into. So if you wanted to continue, I guess you could probably continue the brickwork out with a little bit of green stuff. Or you could just ignore it. Like, I think you put a tuft of grass or some dirt in the back there, nobody knows the difference.
All right.
Well, that really does not. There we go.
All right, we're going to get my tools. My tools.
Your chills.
All my different tools. There's that.
Let's see. We can get her. It's really hard to see that plastic. Wonder if I can lock. Can't configure that. this. And then we can play with that.
Do.
There we go. Now you can actually see. And let's lock.
All right, 5 minutes out, ladies and gentlemen. From yes, that is James's compressor that is running in the background. He's going to try to talk very loud when the compressor runs on cue, so that it doesn't blare out his microphone.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my better webcam up and running now, so I will be hacking away at that for the next couple minutes, I'm sure.
Yep. It'll probably not work just when you need it to.
There we go. That takes a lot of farting around to be able to see gray plastic.
But you probably want it to be a bit darker anyway.
Well, I had to kill the autofocus, kill the auto gain, set the exposure. Like, it takes a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is, what happens when I put something else there? Oh, that's still not bad. How close can we get to Wolf?
This pre-podcast is the worst podcast ever made.
There's DeWolf in sheep's clothing.
High definition beard.
HD beard.
HD beard.
All bearded cast today.
My beard needs some growth.
Well, you're about to head out, so travel beard will happen.
Travel beard will happen. Oh, we don't have a film permit yet.
Really?
Yeah. Super awesome. They told us 2 days ago that we needed a film permit. Monday, during the holiday. Awesome. Perfect timing.
So, you need a film permit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what is that, goober?
Oh, HD beard!
All right.
Sweet. Oh, that's awesome.
So much better.
Oh,
That's
wow.
awesome. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a real webcam. Sounds like...
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Not sorry.
This is the price that we pay.
Now I'm going to make everybody motion sick.
Well, at least it's only a quarter of the screen, so it shouldn't be too bad.
Sweet. All right, 2 minutes out from whatever this is going to be.
2 minutes out from whatever the hell this is. God, I hate webcam autofocus. God, I hate how much my hands shake. Not as much as James, apparently. James shakes pretty hard. You're killing Skype, by the way. Its codec is designed for a small head to move in a large shot, not the entire screen to move the entire time. It just gets pixelated as all fuck.
I was just trying to find a place to put it.
Yep.
All right. We may as well get started.
Are we going to use the death clock opening, or are we going to...
You know what? Let's not. Let's just do an impromptu opening. So, we'll just everybody do a moment of silence. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the newest format that we're working on. Tonight's kind of an impromptu version of how this format's going to work. We've never done it before. Basically, the idea is we're going to do some hobby stuff tonight. We're going to put together some models. We've got our buddy James here, one of the world's greats, I'd like to say. One of my instructors, one of your instructors.
Yep.
The guy that makes us all better just by talking at us. James, what are you working on tonight?
I've got a couple of things on the go. I've got a pair of busts that I'm working on for an actor. Kind of fun.
That's pretty good.
Creepy as hell. But the interesting thing is that this bust is going to go to the guy that it is sculpted in the likeness of. So that's kind of fun.
Oh, that is neat.
I've also got my Guild Ball team that I've started a bit of basic colors on. So we'll see how that tonight too.
I've actually got a pretty cool bunch of stuff that I'm going to unpack. But George, before I get started, what are you going to be checking out tonight?
I've got a bunch of stuff that sort of needs completing. I've got an armless Dracoon. I've got a Bombardier bombshell with no bombshell. I've got some of the mini crate models that I need to put together.
Cool. So I just other than the Nayslayers that I didn't know I was getting tonight, which is awesome. Nayslayers are
well. You had requested them.
I did request them. Nayslayers are really good, so I'm looking forward to them being really good. I received my box from Nova Open, James.
Hey!
We're gonna see what's in my box for Nova Open, so I'm just gonna go root through this. So those of you who do not know, James and I are going to be painting with some. Man, I'm painting with some people that I'm intimidated by.
That you are in no way qualified.
I mean, starting with Aggie, she just intimidates me.
Yeah, she intimidates you for entirely different reasons.
Different reasons. Aggie and Ben, Aggie and I are going to be splitting a box of Northkin Raiders for one list. So, James, give me a sense of, because you're part of the sort of planning behind this. What is the list that this is? What are we doing?
So we got John Henry from Arcane Assist to write up a great Northkin list for us.
I hear he's good at trolls.
And it's going to be totally baller when it's all painted. It's going to be amazing.
And we've got some really big names.
Him and
sorry, continue.
Yeah, John and Tim worked out the list for us. And we've got Justin from Secret Weapon is doing the Hooch Holler. We've got Sam Lenz, one of the greatest painters in North America, doing Rock. We've got Devonian from the War Machine Painting Forums doing the Champions. We've got Matt DiPietro painting Scaldi, if I remember correctly. I'm doing the new Brawler, the heavy War Beast. Yom is doing the stone unit with complete glow effects, so that's going to be
that should be amazing,
fantastic. Just a lot of really great people chipping in and do some amazing things.
So I'm going to unpack my box.
Dallas Kent's doing the Rune Bear.
Oh, that's right. Dallas is in too. So I'm going to unpack what I got. We've got some Secret Weapon miniature bases. These are the medium bases. There's a whole whack of them, probably enough for 2 units. For some reason that we don't really know yet. So there's some Secret Weapon miniature bases here. What kind of, these are the stone bases? Is that the deal with these ones?
Yeah,
they can't see those on camera. There we go.
They're called Rocky Bluff.
Rocky Bluff. I'll call your Rocky Bluff. I've got 2 Rocky Bluff 50 mil bases. Those we're guessing are supposed to go to Ben.
I think so. I think those are for the Bears.
Okay, so those are for the Bears. I've got 2 Pig Barrel Riders. Those are the privateer. Yeah. Sorry.
By adding those to the unit, it makes 2 min units.
Sweet.
In one box.
Sweet. So, yep, that's pretty sweet. You can see those. They've got. This is. I'm looking forward to painting these ones. These are like they've got the barrel. George is wishing he could borrow the barrel to cast the barrel. So that
I've got one of those in the other room.
Perfect. And last but not least,
I haven't even got one of those yet.
Well, the good news is we have we might have 2 extras, or we might have an extra one. So and last but not least, we have the Northkin Bear Handlers.
The bear fondler.
There's that's what happened. Okay, we have a box of Northkin Bear Handlers, so those need to go. Those need to go to Ben. That explains that, and then we have the Northkin Raiders.
Is the reason that you have the extra bases because they needed one for the bear handler, and it was quicker for him to grab a 20-pack instead of trying to fish through?
That would be my guess. Is that we probably
when you supposed to be enough for the barrel riders, for the unit, and for the bear handler and his bears.
Yep. So that looks like that's all making sense. So I need to get half. You know what? I needed to get half of this unit to Aggie anyway, so that just makes sense. So I'm going to put away the bear handlers because
You're not even going to show people the bear handler?
I did. I'm not
No,
gonna.
no, I
I'm
mean,
not gonna
take it
unbox
out.
them. That's for Ben to do. You can't take away a man's unboxing.
Yeah, but he's not going to be able to do it on camera.
That's like sleeping with his wife.
I have a unit of them over here, George. If you really want to see it.
Well, no. I know what they look like, but we put it on camera and then didn't open it. That's like the tease.
Well, unfortunately, hey man, I don't touch another man's bear handlers.
I mean, that's between you and a consenting adult, I guess.
Oh, look at this. This is interesting. Oh, this is packed differently than I'm used to. So we've got some metal parts that are in a baggie.
Yeah, so PP recently, I have started getting models in baggies instead of in the vacuum sealed, like the heat sealed bags.
Huh.
Now I don't know if that's why.
Well, also
this
there's
one-
no. It's
on spruce.
But usually you get it in the plastic casing, but this is not.
Oh, I see what you mean. You get it in the like plastic tray.
Right. Okay, so blisters. That's the word I was looking for.
Blister,
Blisters.
yeah.
All right, so we're going to get started. We're going to work on these, and while we're working on these, we're going to talk about the week's events.
I got to play a game last night.
You got to play a game last night. What were you playing?
I played Armored Core, non-CID. I wanted to see how bad they were before things got started.
Did you win?
I did,
Oh, well, there you
despite
go.
my best efforts.
So they're pretty good then.
So my list is a Conquest Koslov, the battle box caster, 2 units of the Shock Troopers with UAs, 2 Kovniks, a unit of Demo Men, and the Dracoon, and 2 min units of Repair Dudes. And I went second, and because of Koslov's feat, which is extra 2 inches of speed, or plus 2 speed, and then the Kovnik gives them plus 2 movement, I started at the 10-inch line, and I was at the bottom of 1, because I went second, I was at 24 inches. So I was in the middle of all the zones, locking him out with his circle army so that I didn't get totaled. And the Conquest walked forward and shot one of his teleporty stones so that I wouldn't have to worry about something getting into my back line.
Is that the technical term?
The teleporty stones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's opposed to the sticky stone, the stone that generates stickmen.
Gotcha.
And so that was all well and good, but then I found out I was way too close to all the circle stuff, and I got shot, I think it was 8 times. And the only reason Koslov didn't die was because he blocked in his own models and couldn't get Loki close enough to drag.
Gotcha.
And so I learned from that Koslov probably shouldn't be at 22 inches forward.
Did you learn though?
No, I didn't learn. I'm
I
going to
didn't.
lose that way the next
Yeah.
turn. But then I proceeded to have everybody just beat the ever-living tar out of a circle army. If there is a definition of glass cannon, circle might be it. And so, yeah, I just beat the living crap out of them, and then managed to kill everything but Tanith. Tanith made a second assassination run on my caster, which failed because I was camping everything, and then I killed Tanith.
All right.
So-
James, how was your week in War Machine? Have you You've been working hard on some projects there, I think, huh?
I have. I've been working on these busts for painting. I've been trying to get my Guild Ball team in shape. I'd like to have some paint on it for the Sioux. So we'll see how that goes. But I haven't gotten to play a whole lot in the last little bit. But I'm really looking forward on the March break. My son and I are going to break out some Company of Iron.
Oh, that is
Ooh.
so much
Teach him how
fun.
to play that.
Sweet. Well, that's a good way to start. He's been working on a Crix army, hasn't he?
Yeah. But being, well, I guess he just turned 10 now. It's a little slow going in terms of army building. He gets really excited about a piece, and then the whole idea of building a whole lot more pieces gets a little daunting. So this is going to be just right.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. That actually happens to me. I can't stand units. And so when I am staring at a unit box, I have to keep reminding myself how much I want to play them, or else units just don't get made.
Look at you guys talking about unit boxes and busts already tonight. Jeez, it's all devolved. Well, James, you're going to be working with your airbrush tonight, are you not?
Yeah, I'll be.
Making
I'm
horribly
just
loud noises.
cleaning them up right now before I start using them. I may have done a subpar job of cleaning them when I finished last time.
So what is your sort of cleaning ritual for your airbrush?
I start by checking the needles and seeing, if they're moving completely free or not. Then if they are, I just pull the needle, give it a good cleaning with some lacquer thinner or alcohol, and then a little chapstick for lubrication, and it goes back in. If it's not moving super freely, then I'll also clean the inside of the brush again before I start using it again.
Interesting. I really have to get some chapstick because both green stuff and apparently now airbrushes are excellent uses of it.
Yeah, the other place, other than just, a little bit for lubricating your needle, anytime you've got a seal where you're twisting something on, you're worried about air bubbles or anything, a little bit of chapstick will also make sure that your seal is real good.
Interesting. Okay. Now, on a brand new airbrush, because I just got a brand new Badger airbrush from that one-day sale, so unfortunately I can't recommend everybody jump on that sale, but I can recommend everybody jump on those airbrushes. I got a really nice one. Is it something that I should be opening it up and lubricating everything before I even use it, or is this a after the first use type of thing?
You could really go either way with that one, George. If it was me, I'd probably go through and just do it once anyway. But it shouldn't be necessary, but surely doesn't hurt. You know what I mean?
Okay. And it would probably, I have this problem. I know it is correctly put together right now. I vaguely worried that if I take it apart, I will put it back together incorrectly, and then I will think, oh, this airbrush doesn't work well, and put it back down.
It's funny because there was a situation not too long ago where you called me up. You're like, I got this airbrush and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember showing up and being like, yeah, George, this is backwards.
Well, that's the thing.
Learning how to assemble your airbrush is super important, George.
Yeah.
If you're going to use one, you got to learn how to tear it down.
Yeah, it's because you pretty much have to tear it down at the end of every...
Well, every time you clean it,
yeah,
right?
End of every major use anyway.
Now, one thing I'd recommend, Caleb Wissenbach. He did a video a while ago. I can't remember if Aaron, I think it was Caleb, did a video a while ago where he talks about cleaning your airbrush in between colors and whatnot.
Okay.
And how to do just kind of quick cleans. And I highly recommend watching. It's only 10-15 minutes of stuff, but it explains a lot in pretty straightforward ways. He's a guy that knows his way around an airbrush pretty well.
When you're doing your airbrush, when you do airbrushing, do you blend all your colors in advance so that you don't have to do as much cleaning and kind of go from light to dark, so that you can?
Sure, I do.
Do as I say, not as I do.
No. I mean, there's a lot of people that do everything properly. They mix things in cups and pour it in. I just mix right in my airbrush.
I do.
Some people groan at me and say, "Oh, you can't do that," but
you can do whatever you want.
Pretty much.
I do the cups in advance so that and then I can go from and I try to do my airbrushing from light to dark colors, so that I don't have to clean as much. But that's mainly because my sink is like a million miles away from my airbrushing area. So
I just kind of rinse it out and keep going.
Mind
you, I've also got a fume hood and stuff like that, so it makes life a little easier.
I was just gonna say, how does it exhaust outside?
This one is not currently set up to go outside because it's winter. There's like a dryer hose that goes to the back and then up to your window. But it's got like a 3-stage filter, so it captures everything.
I got lucky enough to inherit a great big fume hood. Well, you've seen my big old painting fume hood thing. It's being able to vent it outside the house is friggin' fantastic, and because I can do my priming, like if I want to use rattle can primer, I can still do that inside the house even in the winter. Because anybody who's lived in Canada who's gone out and take a rattle can primer outside to go do rattle can priming in the middle of the winter ends up with fuzzy models.
That's why you prime everything in summer and fall, and then you spend all winter painting your primed models.
Oh, is that how that works?
That's how you're supposed to do it.
All right, so one of the
I've got another fume hood at work, so I do that there.
So one of the things that I'm dealing with this model is looks like the mold slipped a little bit.
Oh, and you got that sort of offset line.
Well, and it's pretty hardcore. So I'm trying to basically carve the.
Send that one to Aggie.
Well, I already clipped it.
Smarten up. Check out your sprues. Send the other ones to Aggie.
Hey, this one is terrible, and this one's good. Okay, thanks.
Listen, she paints trolls. She's used to crazy mold lines.
You handed me. There's that paper towel.
Let's see here. Well, they're all pretty much equal. So what I'm doing is I'm basically carving out using my X-Acto knife to kind of carve out things. I do have a little file that I use to get into
tight places.
And it works.
Well, no, I was going to say that's what she said.
And
and
you use a file? That's gross.
That sounds painful.
I've got a great big old knobbly nub of plastic here that is going to be interesting to carve out without breaking the...
No, don't cut that!
Yeah. Wow. If I'm going to get this cape back, I'm going to have to... Wow. Throw those clippers again. So, what kind of cool things has PP released this week, gentlemen? Anything interesting? Anything that's caught your eye? I saw the new mini crates stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The new Totem Huntress.
The Totem Huntress and Mrs. Walls.
Mrs. Walls. Whee! Yeah.
Both of those look real good.
Well, I think the funniest part is everybody's like, how the hell did Mr. Walls...
That is a fabulous job that he's had.
Yeah, he's done well for himself, because she's way out of his league.
So, for those watching the video, and by the way, if you are normally just a podcast listener, I highly suggest this week.
I don't think we should even release this as a podcast.
Oh, we should totally release this as a podcast.
Worst podcast ever.
Hey, content is content.
Yeah, that's true.
Content is king.
That is true.
George, that looks really good. I like that.
Yeah, I think it should look really good, and it gives you a sense of scale of the model. By herself, you don't realize how big the Swamp Siren is, and I think with that architecture in the back, I think she's going to look really good.
What is that from?
It's a weird basing set.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah, it's the Gothic Victorian, and then this is, of course, the first set of Privateer Press mini crate models, the Swamp Siren and the Wolf in sheep's clothing. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus on DeWolf here. I mostly got DeWolf because, as a press ganger, I now have all of the wolves. I have the PP exclusive one that was only for press gangers, and then I have the regular one and DeWolf.
Part of yours was painted by Meg Maples.
Yes, it was.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, the rest was painted by you.
I know.
Mine was painted by James Craig.
Ooh. So what are you working on?
A real jerk.
Have you managed to get your brushes clean yet there, James, or are you still working away at that?
I'm actually still I left these things worse off than I thought. So I've almost got one clean now.
Do you watch any YouTube videos for painting tips?
Yeah, all the time.
I was just watching Dr. Faust's painting clinic, and he did an Umber Hulk today, and he had an amazing little tip that I thought is a great final thing. So after you've varnished your models, he got a kit that I assume is relatively inexpensive on Amazon, where you get individual eyelashes. So not prepared like, groups of them for putting on your eyes, but individual ones, I guess, for accentuating the corners of your eyes or something. But what he did is he used the individual eyelashes as like little hairs on the Umber Hulk. So where there was like a plate, the two plates would join together, he would have one of these or a couple of these little hairs sticking up, and it really added a lot to the model. It was amazing. And it was just a couple of seconds with a pair of tweezers, right? Dip the end of it in glue, tap it on the model, and leave it there.
What was I going to ask about? I had a question. So James, what I'm working on right now is I'm trying to get every one of these sprue lines out of the model. When you're doing judging for painting contests, how important is it how important is the assembly part of the miniature?
Vital. It'll knock you out right away.
Interesting.
You can have a beautiful paint job, but if there's mold lines running around that sucker, then you're already going to be put immediately behind anything that's comparable.
So that's one of the reasons I'm working so incredibly hard on this, and I'm sure a lot of people at home don't, but I know that these are going to be sitting beside some really great painters' work.
You need to give them every chance they can get.
I don't want to be the one that's like, ooh, and then there's that guy's models.
Well, if you're really lucky, they'll mix them all up on the table, and nobody will ever know.
That would be unlucky.
Now, here's a question: do you guys sign your competition models?
I sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just asking. Do you guys sign competition models?
Do I sign competition models? Yes, usually, and I always sign the ones for the charity.
Cool.
You don't have to sign every model, but you should definitely sign like the leader or the barrel rider or something like that. But yeah, competition models I like to either sign or I usually hide something in there. A lot of my models I dedicate as a thank you to my wife. I put in I had a heart carved into the tree or something like that. It says J+L. I had that kind of stuff in a lot of my pieces.
That's awesome. One of the things whenever you're making terrain is that they say you should have to look a piece of terrain 3 times to see everything. So the first time you look at it, you see the big stuff. The second time you see the detail, and then the third time you find the surprise. So for example, I have a 4x4 board I have here that I did that has a stream running down the middle. So the first time you look at it, and it's like, oh, there's a river down the middle of this board. The second time you look at it, you see things like the carved out rock faces and the pebbled beach and the little bubbles in the water around the rapids. And then the third time you look at it, you find stuff like there's a half-eaten fish on the shore, and there's actually a little tiny treasure chest in the resin sunk at the bottom of the water and stuff like that. And
that's cool.
If you can do the same thing with a model, then you'll be really well off.
Oh, man.
Siren's looking pretty good.
Oh, that's good.
Now, she's only 2 pieces, but I think her on that base is going to look really good.
So tell me a bit about that base. We haven't really talked about it on the show yet. We talked about it a bit before the show, but tell me a bit about that base. All about that base. That base.
All about that base?
Yeah, no trouble.
Okay. So PP, there's a glaring hole as far as I'm concerned in PP's model strategy, which is bases. In case people don't know, and probably 90% of people don't know or care, pass me a couple of those mediums you got there.
There you go.
Let's see what we got here. Oh, these are all new gen, so that must be a new model. Let's see if I can find an old generation base. So Privateer Press has gone through about 4 or 5 generations of bases. So when Privateer Press was starting up, they were a brand new company. And the reason that their bases are in millimeters and absolutely everything else in the game is in inches is because they were just buying bases from a place in China. So the original PP bases, you'll find they don't have any pegs. They've just got a slot. They have no logos or anything in them. Also, the top won't be textured. You'll find them just a flat text, like a untextured top. There's the second generation, I think, when they were able to order their bases, you started to see this texture on the top, but on the bottom you still didn't have any iconography, but you did have the peg holes, especially on larger bases where they have the multiple positions for peg holes. And then this is the latest generation of Privateer Press base, which has not only the peg holes and the slot, but it's got this reinforcement down the center. And that's happening because the actual edge plastic has gotten thinner. And some of these bases actually have cracked, sort of basically along that line, because you have a very high torsional stretch here, where you've got a big chunk of metal in this just prying along here, and it was just cracking right along this area. And you can actually see that in some of the sort of mid-generation bases. If someone's got a really heavy model, like these metal Man-O-Wars, stuff like this, on the mid-generation bases, you'll find cracks that form in the front or in the back, depending on how you've mounted the base. So they went to these strengtheners. And I'm sure they still order the bases by the million from China, but now they're ordering enough of them that they can get their own molds made. So, yeah, if you always just thought a base was a base. Oh, and by the way, never measure your bases. Every Privateer Press base is basically a different size.
Jason was about to remove about 100 bases off of some stuff he bought, and you're saying it doesn't matter?
So here's the horrible truth about bases. The horrible truth about bases is the base size doesn't really matter. It should, but it doesn't. So Privateer Press has about 6 different versions of bases, including metal ones. Every single one is a different size. They can be off as much as 1 or 2 mil. The resin bases are horrible. They're legal because they are round-lipped bases that were sold as 30, 40, 50 mil, but I have never met 2 bases that were the same size that were made out of resin. And that's because resin curing at different rates will have different rates of shrinkage. So even amongst the same batch from the same provider, you often get bases of different sizes. And, you know, as the mold wears, as the guy pouring it puts a little bit more or a little bit less in, because if you fill a base to the absolute edge, it might be the right size, but if you only fill it, say, halfway up, it's not going to be the same size as if you filled it all the way to the edge. So the way I have had to rule it locally, and I don't know if this is going to count for anybody in different metas, but the way I've ruled it locally is that if it is a round-lipped base that was sold as a certain size, so if you bought it in a box that said 40 mil bases on it, they are going to be legal 40 mil bases. Now, obviously someone could try and, game that system, but that's why we have TOs. The reason is you just can't actually. I would be able to DQ probably 20 to 30% of the people with all regular old Privateer Press bases in our meta, just easily, because none of the damn things are the same size. So
more than you ever wanted to know.
Yeah. So I'm not sure anybody
here,
else.
This opens to a good topic for us though tonight. Who are some of the people that make really cool bases for your models.
Well, of course, we got to pimp Secret Weapon because they're doing so much great stuff for Nova. But Dragon Forge, I have loved some Dragon Forge design bases. I've gotten
my Rulik army's all on Dragon Forge.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten a lot of use out of the Weird bases because Weird uses the same size bases that PP does, so it's nice that you can just buy them. And they come in a couple really weird but highly thematic types. They actually have clear bases. So like clear orange and clear green and clear red. So if you have like a ghostly guy, you can put him on clear green to get an interesting different basing without actually having to do much in the way of basing. Another thing I think we should pimp is it's not actually a base, but it's a base roller.
Oh yeah.
I know you've got at least one of theirs.
Yeah, from Green Stuff World.
Yeah, Green Stuff World makes these little base rollers, and buy your green stuff by the pound off of the internet, knead it up, and then scoosh it onto the base more than you think you need.
Yeah, a lot more.
And then roll these across, and you get amazingly textured bases.
One more tip: wet the roller.
Or chapstick the roller.
Well, chapstick would work fine, but you're going to go through a crap ton of chapstick in a night. Or all you really need to do is just get some water on it. So I keep a little spray bottle of water and just spray it down. If you don't
or water and glycerin together as a spray works really well for that too.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Because if you don't spray the roller, then all the green stuff just jams up inside
the. Happy Seppuku makes rubber molds very much similar to the base rollers, but they're flat pieces, so you can just press in a section or do whole large multiple stampings with these two. Happy Seppuku makes really great stuff for that.
Gonna assemble this the Wolf in Sheep's Clothing.
For my Trollbloods army, I have the Cool Mini or Not with MicroArt Studios basing system.
Oh,
I like them quite a bit.
What what constitutes a basing system as opposed to just bases?
Well, they have these. They call them the deep dish bases. They're like a hollow round lip base, and then there's different inserts that will go into their standard round lip base. So the outer lip section is made of a hard plastic, and so dimensionally they come out pretty even. They're not a resin. They're not a soft curing. They're a hard like PVC plastic.
Yeah.
And then the inserts are done in a softer plastic, much like a lot of the Cool Mini or Not board gaming pieces or whatnot.
Okay.
Which makes them super easy to cut up, super easy to pin into, and the detail in them is really quite good because the masters all came from MAS, MicroArt Studios, who are a Polish company who make also amazing bases. This was just a way to get a lot of their designs out en masse in this huge mass production. I backed the Kickstarter, might have been 2 years ago now, about a crap ton of bases, and I'm super happy. I'm going to use more of them as time goes on.
Yeah, if you can get your hands on MicroArt stuff, it's really good. I have always been pleased with the stuff I've gotten from them. Now, I've gotten more terrain from MicroArts as opposed to basing. Now, you mentioned those the deep dish bases. I assume those would be wonderful for water effects as well.
Absolutely. And again, with the inserts being so easily cut and modified, adding effects like that, it's a dream. It's so good. I'll go grab one. I'll be right back.
Cool. Yeah, the MicroArt Studios definitely do some wonderful basing, as well as what was the other one I encountered recently? I can't remember their name, but they actually do Pseudobyte. You would actually know the paper insert bases. So they're basically just pieces of printed cardboard that you can lay down on top.
The other one is our buddy Tectonic Dan. Laser printed
laser cut bases.
And then the nice thing about those is affordability. I mean,
not only that, they are really neat as base inserts.
Yeah.
I am becoming a bigger and bigger fan of base inserts as opposed to entire replacement bases.
Well, I mean, a base insert's nice because then you don't have to worry. If say you want it for your one model, but you need to have the round lip base. You don't have to think about it as much. It's pretty sweet.
So since we're assembling some stuff, I want to pimp out. It's going to be horribly backwards on the cast. So this is the Bob Smith Industries Insta Set and the Instacure
yes.
Crinkle.
glue. I have been using these for a while, and they are really good. They bond almost instantly. In fact, too quickly often.
Well, and the.
Oh, there's that deep bass.
Oh wow, look at
There it
that.
is.
Super
I
deep.
like that.
Wrong way. There we go. Wrong way. Terrible. I'll learn how to use internet someday. And then the base just sits.
So have you
inside.
attached the bases to the model, like the inserts to the models?
Yeah.
And then you're just going to throw them onto bases whenever?
Yeah, that way I don't get paint all over the outer lip and make a mess of it. Keeps the outside nice and clean.
Well, actually, here's something I want to call out that I saw that Will did that I really liked, and I'm totally going to steal for the Skator Army, I think, is
You can't steal it for your Kador army. Come on,
he did
man.
the front and back of his bases to do the arc markings. Instead of doing it in a color, he did a matte and shiny varnish. And it gives a really... It is obvious when you're looking for it, but it doesn't interfere with the look of the model. And it looks really good.
I'm not sure. I mean, I stole that from somebody else.
Oh,
I've seen it
like
somewhere
everything else, we all steal down
and
the
I
line.
will definitely give credit if I ever figure out who it was.
Have you ever figured out who it was that
I
stole
saw it was probably looking at Cool Mini or not, and saw somebody do arc marks that way. I like it because if I ever, none of my Grimkin armies so far have been showpieces, but if ever anyone is, then that arc mark isn't going to really take away from the paint job, if that makes sense. That was sort of the goal on that one. So James, what are you working on now, buddy? What's going on in the James Craig studio?
Well, I have my lordy. Started working on
the bar.
my hunters.
That's
They're
that's
totally
their,
out of focus.
Yep, that's the totally out of focus mascot of the Hunters.
Yeah. So anyway, actually, the bear's not a mascot. The bear's a full team member.
Oh, really? What's the Hunters mascot?
And it's a she. The veteran version is coming out and comes with cubs.
Oh, wow, cool.
I started working on that. It's coming along pretty good. Quite happy. But I think I'm going to start spraying a bit on. So the jackets on the busts that I've been doing, I've been using a new technique to do leather effects, and the one jacket has come out just magnificent. I'm so happy. Very different way to work, but it's a lot of glazing. And so now I'm doing it. The second one is in red, so I need to deepen the color a little bit. But pretty much I have to put a coat or two coats on whenever I have the opportunity. So I think I'm going to do that right now.
So when you're doing that leather look, what's the process?
So you start with a really matte black. I use the Stynylrez primer as my base, and I start building into the highlights of that with a mixture of black and kind of like an ochre yellow. And then it's lots and lots of glazing with various black and brown inks to build up the tone so that it has a rich multidimensional color to it. And in between, at different points, I will also add additional stippling and textures in the ochre colored paint to create a more worn or well-used leather effect. And so that's how I did the black jacket. Now I'm working on a red jacket using a very similar approach, but doing it in red instead. Let's see if I can get this guy. No, it's just gonna look terrible. I'm really bad at this, guys. One of these days,
Oh,
I'll
there
learn
we
how
go.
to do
So
things for a camera.
you're using a similar technique to the way they use the resin paintings,
Yeah.
Japanese resin paintings, so that it looks like there's a fish swimming in the water or whatever, to give that layer of depth to the coat.
I've sent Will some pictures of this. It's not going to show up on camera, but it's pretty damn incredible. I'm pretty proud of myself on the way this turned out.
Those busts are
I wish I could show.
humongous.
Now, before I saw a PP bust, that was what I thought of as a small bust. Yeah, the fact that you call them huge, just confuses me.
Yeah,
because all of my experience as
look at that.
Wow, that is amazing.
So you can see all the tonality that comes in, sort of the worked leather areas where the folds are. That's great, James.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get it any better, guys. I'm sorry.
No, that's
all
fine.
right.
Yeah, when I thought of busts as someone who had never seen a modeling bust before, what I thought of was a bust was what I had seen at the museum.
Right.
And when the first PP busts came out, I kind of thought they would be the size of the ones that James was working on, and I was like, when we finally saw them, I was like, oh my god, they're so small.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because it's such a step up from doing a miniature, but it's like a moderate step up. So like the amount of detail you can do on a PP bust is it, and that's sort of the hard part for a person who's only done miniature painting their entire life, is to step up to a bust. Suddenly you have to be a lot more detailed with things like skin texture.
Yeah.
As James is showing off, the texture on the coats, things like that. That they have to be more detailed, more realistic. Because if it's just well tinted paint with good highlights and good lowlights, well, you can now see it clear as day. It's not quite this. It's not quite the same.
Now, we spend a lot of time as miniature painters faking light on a model.
Yeah.
When you start painting a model at that size, are you still doing the same faking it of trying to fake the light? Or does it get to the place where you can't fake it because there's actual light?
Little bit of both. When I paint models, and I'm actually I'm writing an article on this for Discount Games that I'm going to hand in the next couple of days. It'll go up in a couple weeks. I'm blogging for them these days as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's about my process with painting light. And I talk a little bit about, like 10 years ago, more than that, 15 years ago at least, zenithal priming was the big new exciting thing,
Yes.
You spray everything black and then you pick a light angle and you shoot a little extra light from above. And then people started getting fancier and shooting from different angles and whatnot. And I still do that, but I also have taken to adding additional areas of contrast and focal points in my priming layer to help me establish the light and the interest that I want to create. So it's almost it's like a whole nother step on top of that. A lot of people look at it and say, oh, why are you wasting your time with that? You're just going to paint over it. But for me, it's really important in visualization and understanding where I really want the focus in the model to be. It's an easy layer to adjust with just a little bit more priming with the airbrush. And it really has helped me a lot with my models. And in that article, if you guys see it later, it'll have these busts in primer. And you can see where I've established underlighting on one of the busts. It's going to have like a general zenithal lighting effect, but then it will also have a secondary light, like an OSL effect from beneath. And you can really see it in the primer layer. And using that photo, I'll have everything I need to make it really work in the actual piece.
Now, is that the friend of the sketch style?
Pardon me, sorry?
Is that similar to sketch style?
It kind of is. Sketch style's kind of about working loose and, again, establishing major focal points, and then just kind of the parts that aren't the attention-grabbing parts, you just give it a looser for your paint job and move on. this is something that I also do with, you know, competition level with a much tighter focus, but it does give a little bit of the same process of visualization, a little bit of extra help in working out what's important in your model.
Yeah, one of the things that if anybody's interested in learning how to create contrast, one of the nice things about the first step of sketch style is after you do your zenithal priming, you use the zenithal prime basically to sketch out your contrast, and it does really help you start to understand. To focus more on the light, which I think is something we forget about. We just try to make the high points on the model have as much contrast as possible. The low parts have as much contrast as possible.
What is this 1990s GW?
Yeah, something.
We'll just put a line on the edge of everything and call it good.
So, James, do you have some sort of? We got all the noises now.
Compressor.
Got all the noises now. James, do you have any sort of general rules for light when you're developing the light and where the light comes from on your model? Where do you start looking from, and how do you start figuring that out?
Generally, the first thing I do is I look at the general direction of the model. You know, so which way is it facing? What is the line of action, we call it in drawing? So if I was sketching a figure, I would establish what are the big lines of physical movement. So I think of the model in the same way. So I look where is my direction of my model? How can my lighting amplify that movement or sense of weight or whatever that model is portraying? So I tend to light based not on model to model being the same in a unit, but rather based on the character of each individual model.
Makes sense. Pseudobyte asks, what do we think about, he's asking a loaded question here. What do we think of painting requirements for tournaments? Should it be more of a thing? I know George's opinion. I know my opinion. I don't know James's opinion. James, what's your opinion of painted models at tournaments? Should it be a requirement?
You know, I think a lot of that depends on the idea that there are different levels of tournaments. I think if you're competing something national, something, you know, a big important event, then yeah, I think it should be painted. I used to compete in the Games Workshop, you know, various different championship systems that they ran, and you know, if you wanted to show up to the big events, you had to show up painted, and I would rather play against a great visual piece that rounds out the whole experience. You know, if it's local and it's for fun and it's, you know, I think that people should also have the opportunity to show up with models that they just glued together and want to get on the table. But I think that, you know, I think the idea of having events that are that hold to a higher standard is important. I think that the best players should be playing on fantastic armies. And if they're playing on, you know, unpainted chits, then, you know, you might as well just be pushing bases with tape on them, saying, "Oh, this is my Devastator. This is my." I want to see. It's a model game. Models are meant to be painted. It's a whole hobby. I mean, I've never taken my trolls to a tournament because my trolls aren't painted yet. I've taken my dwarves to lots of things because my dwarves are painted. There are additional units that I would like to take in my dwarves. They're not painted yet, so I don't bring them. You know, I think that if it was, you know, if I was just playing down at my local and I want to throw unpainted stuff on the table or partially painted stuff on the table, that's fine. But it takes so little effort to get even a basic painted army together that it just astounds me how many people don't.
Well, and I think we should separate out, and I think because you know the conversation comes up for something like a con. Remember, a con is different than a regional event. Like so a lot of people question why they don't have big painting qualifications at a con. Well, the reality is that would limit the amount of people that would go to the con. I agree with you that at a high level regional, so say you've made it through the World Ender competition, you've made it all the way to the finals. You're about to go to the last 12 men standing competition. It's, you know, at that point, it's almost a respect thing. I don't know.
Okay. So today on Devil's Advocate,
Well, I know
the
you're
best player in the world,
Mhm.
strategic, wonderful mind, has Parkinson's, pushes his model around with a stick, and can't paint a lick because his hands shake so badly. He should not be playing at a high-level competition because he can't paint a model?
Well, here's the problem with that is then in that case,
Borrow
you
painted
got
models.
yeah
Spray paint your models.
yeah
There are lots of ways to paint models.
So-
I can paint a
so
model.
a-
I've painted models with a brush in my mouth before.
Well, as have I, but that is a completely different time and place.
Well, you're using this. You're using the argument of here's an extreme where this case has
Yeah.
to. In that case, you'd make a ruling, or you find people
you tell
that'll-
that person to phone me up. I'll paint their army for them in a weekend.
Exactly. Like somebody would help that out. I'm talking about, but look at guys like so the world team, the WTC, the world team competition.
Yep.
You have to be painted,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
don't think that's a wrong thing.
No.
But don't get that confused with a con.
Yeah.
People
well,
get
I
that
think-
confused with the con, and they go, "Well, I don't understand why the con it doesn't have a fully painted qualification." And it's like, well, it's because legitimately we'd lose half the con goers at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. But like, I went to I'm just trying to remember what they were called. Games Workshop used to have these big once a year tournaments that
Game
were.
Day? No.
Well, there was Games Day, but no, this was a separate event, and it was just tournament.
Okay.
It was not a whole plethora of event. It wasn't for the entire public to just come through and do whatever.
Yeah.
It was considered to be a serious tournament, and it was kind of, if you want to come to this, you have to come correct.
Now, GW.
You don't go to a 5-star restaurant wearing your bathing suit and some ripped up old shirt. You come dressed correct. Your models come dressed correct to a proper tournament.
GW has always had a history of fully painted. And some people might say that is a detriment to their competitive scene. Well, it is among the problems with their competitive
They have
scene.
competitive rules now.
No, but they still have
No,
tournaments.
they gave up on those a long time ago.
It's the standard. It's an old refrain. I'm sure many of you have heard it. GW is a model company that puts out some rules so you can play with their pretty models, and companies like PP are games companies that put out models so you can play their game. It is an old refrain, but I think a true one.
Well, and so George, what is we've heard
What's
James'
the real
opinion.
one?
You've played Devil's Advocate. Now,
Yeah.
what is your true opinion of having painted models at competition?
It's really nice. I wish everybody would do it. I'm never going to, outside of the formats that actually require it, I'm never going to enforce painted models in an event. Though it would be wonderful for everybody to show up with beautifully painted models. And though I highly encourage it, if you've ever been to one of my tournaments, you can get extra points in any tournament league by having at least one fully painted army. Anything like that. It is a portion of the hobby, not necessarily a portion of the game. So people should not be penalized at a regular event for not having painted minis if all they want to do is be a strategic wargamer. Now, that is partially my TO voice speaking, because I have to be the TO, right? I have to be the guy who's making these decisions for everybody. Would I love to see fully painted at every tournament? God, yes.
Yeah, that would be great.
Now, here's the problem. I'd get to go to 2 tournaments a year.
So it's also a bit of a guilty pleasure for you.
Well, like, I would love to have my models fully
Well,
painted.
you know what?
But
Your
I would
COC
rather...
army is fully painted. For
Yes.
as simply as it is, it's a fully painted army. So
yeah,
you could.
and I very carefully... I chose the color scheme of not only my Convergence army, but of my Scorn army, so that they could be fully painted. My Scorn army is done in this style that basically looks like a Japanese painting, those sort of woodcut paintings. So it is this sort of monochromatic parchment color with highlights of red. And I specifically chose that scheme because I spray paint one color, I highlight that color, I wash the whole model, and then paint the highlights red, and I'm done.
Which goes to show you that there is other ways.
Oh, as I said, I'm
there's
not,
ways.
And again, that's the thing. I've painted at least 3 armies now. Games Workshop, like full-size 2,500 point armies, much more figures than War Machine. And I've painted 3 of those armies in a grand total of 6 days. 2 days per army, done. You know, they were long days, but that is not at all unreasonable or undoable if you're serious about your hobby and your game.
Yeah. Now, how much hobby stuff do you already have? Airbrushes, all that kind of material that allows that to happen. If
those armies there were before I owned an airbrush.
Okay.
The one was painted with 3 rattle cans and some washes.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was painted using basically dry brushing techniques. You know, I mean, the 2 days doesn't include assembly. The models were put together before that, but it was 2 days of painting. I can knock out 2,500 points of tournament ready, and one of them actually won a Best Army Award. So,
wow. That,
you know,
that either speaks to your quality as a painter or the lack of quality amongst most 40K players because they just want to play with their models and have really, really bad paint jobs. So
harsh.
So here's the question. Is it better to have a few really beautifully painted armies and a whole lot of really, really shitty ones than some Silver Surfers and beautifully painted armies?
Well, there goes the elitist problem, because you get, if say we start insisting on painted armies at competitions, then we have to create a subset of rules to say what is a painted army.
Oh,
Then you get into a whole world of
hurt
of indecision. I'm not saying I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with either of you. It's a really sticky wicket, and I know that they do.
I don't think it's that sticky. I don't think it's that hard. I mean, Games Workshop, as the old kid around, they were 3 colors up.
Yeah.
3 colors in a base. If you got 3 colors on your models, you're good. And sure, there's always some chump who goes and says, "Oh, blah blah blah, 3 colors on my model, I'm done."
Yeah,
but you know what?
The main
that person, it's a funny joke for them, and they look like an ass, and that's their problem, and it's done.
Now here's.
But that's not the majority of people in that case.
No.
Most people have a basic, clean, no frills army.
But the problem with that is that GW went farther than saying competition you needed to be painted. They stated that you needed to be painted just to play at your local store. You couldn't field and model without it being painted. That's what I fundamentally disagree with. I agree with you guys.
That was only in their own branded stores, and most people consider that to be a foolish move, and most stores didn't uphold that anyway.
Okay, well there you go. Well, guys, that's our hour.
Oh wow, that's an hour.
James got one coat of paint done.
Airbrushed one
but
thing.
It was a good one.
Before we leave, James, since you spent all this time cleaning your airbrush, give us a little airbrushing primer not primer, but the primer is in the base knowledge. Since you got the airbrush out, can you give us sort of a quick abbreviated how to sort of use the airbrush if you're a first timer, as far as pulsing, where you pull the trigger back to, that kind of thing when you're doing spraying with an airbrush?
All right, so first thing you do when you want to learn how to use an airbrush is you don't point it at a model. You get out a sheet of paper, and you start learning to draw lines, and you start seeing how much pressure, that's where you learn your trigger pulls. You don't learn them pointing it at a model. All right, and if you are going to paint a model, the first thing you're going to paint is probably your hand. All right, so you fire that airbrush, you make sure everything's flowing beautifully before you ever point it at something that matters. Spend some time with your airbrush priming models. You'll get a better feel for it. You might get 1 or 2 little sticky messes, but more often than not, you'll be able to pull off even coats of primer with very little difficulty and get a feel for your tool. pulling back on the airbrush, you pull it back all the way, it's like a spray paint can. You really only need to pull it back to usually pretty much vertical on the trigger. Trigger starts out leaning forward. You need to bring it pretty much to straight up for most average spraying, less for little things. As soon as you start getting any variation in your spray, point away from the model into a box, into a cup. A lot of people like to use like the 7-Eleven drinking cups with the plastic lid and the hole for the straw.
Yep.
Just stick your airbrush in the straw hole and give it a couple of good blasts, just full out, and that'll loosen up whatever's in the end, clear it, and everything should go back to spraying nicely again. When you switch colors, first thing I always do is I use Kleenex or something like that, and I wipe out the excess paint, because there's no point in trying to wash it out if you can just literally physically wipe it out in the first place. So I give it a wiping out, I put in my water or my rubbing alcohol, I spray it, and then one of the tips that you'll get if you watch that video I was telling you about by Caleb is take your needle and give your needle a couple of good spins. Loosen it up, give it a couple of good spins while you're spraying it out, because again, it just breaks up whatever might be starting to clog in the tip of your brush, and tighten your screw back up and go back to a couple of big sprays, and then you should be back in control again. It takes so much less paint than you would think. You go through paint in very, very minute amounts, so don't be afraid to spray a little extra on a paper, on your hand, in a cup, whatever. You're not going to be wasting paint. Most often, you're going to have leftover paint in your brush before you switch colors, unless you get really handy at it. And something else that I'm really, really starting to find and using a lot with my students at the high school is when you want to learn how to airbrush, working with an artist ink instead of paint to start with is a great way to learn control. And these inks are also absolutely killer on miniatures. It's the Daler-Rowney FW inks. They are fantastic. Justin from Secret Weapon, I saw him using them like a year or so ago, and it was just super cool. So I've been giving them a try, and they are fantastic. I'm going to be getting more of those. They go on incredibly smooth, and it's so easy to control.
So an ink as opposed to a wash through an airbrush is like normally when I think of inking a model, I think of very controlled, like painting it into the corners of things.
This is more like painting full layers, but translucent.
Okay.
So
it's glazing.
Translucent because it's an acrylic ink is what it is.
Okay.
So it's like painting with translucent paint, and it allows you to create and modulate depth, and it also lets you kind of trail off with your spray, and you'll get like gradation and blending all day long. Super, super cool.
So it's almost like glazing with an airbrush.
Yep. But it is. It's super fun.
Well, guys, I'm about to assemble the last of my torsos here.
Huzzah!
And the rest can go off to Aggie. I've got to go. The funny part is, and this is my tip of the day. Mm-hmm. Keep looking at your model while you're doing your assembly. Every step,
yes.
and don't be. So you're gonna find more and more lines. It doesn't matter what you do. There's no end to cleaning lines off.
You know when I find most of my lines, the first time I spray coat it, like the first not base coat, but the first primer is always
that's where it indicates
prime all the models, then go back and remove all the mold lines, then reprime all my models.
That's actually not terrible. And don't be afraid that when you start painting, say you've already primed them, you thought you got them all, and then you come across one hellacious line.
Yeah.
Never be afraid to go back in with your X-Acto knife or your file or whatever it is that you're comfortable using to get rid of the lines and get rid of the line. Just use a little bit of black paint. You're basically repriming it at that point. That line is going to look worse.
Yeah.
Than whatever little bit of paint you chipped off. And do it early, obviously. You don't want to be doing it when you're almost done the model, because then you're probably going to have a hell of a time matching the colors and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Modelers, especially like aircraft guys and stuff like that, they usually build, prime, fix, and fix again. That's how they get, down to that perfect layer. lots and lots of coats of primer.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I think we'll leave it for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. This is a different format, and we know it's going to have a different audience.
Yes.
But the reality...
We'll have to figure out where that audience is.
Well, hey.
Because it was
It's
almost on
just
tonight.
Sudabite.
Hey, if that is the only viewer we ever get, I will be perfectly happy doing this every week.
Well, and the idea is that we want to change up. We want to have a bit of variety because honestly, from us who have to do the news every week, we run out of stuff to talk about.
We do occasionally.
And then we end up with crazy casks where you talk to a Dalek for 25 minutes.
I only did that once, and it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
You all left
Dalek
me
the
alone.
artist or Dalek the Doctor Who things?
Yep.
The Dalek, the Doctor Who things, yep. So if you have suggestions for the painting cast and things you'd like to see in it, we are going to build a format around this. It took us a year to build the format for the Death Clock, so I expect it to take at least a month for us to build the format
And
around
we should
this.
let people know that next week is going to be a fight night.
Oh, and Fight Nights, we do have a format.
Yes,
we
do
done
have
a
a
few
format
of those.
for that.
Who do we have? Who do we have up on the Fight Night?
Don't know. Unfortunately, half of our locals are down sick.
Yeah,
So we haven't been able to get any confirmation. It may be you and I commentating and playing.
Well, I won't be here.
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
be
that's right.
I'm in Belize
Well,
filming.
Right now, you're supposed to be in Belize.
But yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
We don't have a film permit yet, so
Who knows?
who knows?
But I will be here either commentating or playing, and I'll drag someone. Heck, it might be my wife down here to play a game, and
kick your
everybody will.
ass.
Yeah.
So
If that lady ever
Drag
actually,
Aubin out.
if that lady ever actually stops to learn the game, I'm so dead. I'll never win a game.
So before we go, George, we have some events coming up in the area. What is going down?
Well, we just had the next one in our local Steamroller series at Out of the Box. The next two events are actually, they're both for Tellurico. They're both external to here. One is the OTC. It's not local, but like 70% of our locals.
I was supposed to be commenting for the OTC this year,
yeah.
and unfortunately, with
Yeah,
the
you're in
movement
Belize.
of I have to make money over commentating War Dollies because I haven't made my fortune yet.
Yep. So there's the OTC coming up, and then after that, locally, we have our what is it? What is his? Scott's going to shoot me now.
Oh, the World Ender.
World Ender. That's
Yes.
what I was trying to come up with. We have our World Ender event at FDB, and that's going to be lots of fun. And then next month, we may not have a tournament.
What?
Well,
The Ottawa area without a tournament for an entire month?
Well, there is the Sioux, so everybody should be going to that.
Yeah.
Just everybody, like the entire meta. It doesn't matter where you are within the sound of my voice. You should be going to the Southern Ontario.
And if you
Open.
can't go, we will be broadcasting live. We will be broadcasting live. The intensity of the broadcast this year is dependent on your surgery.
Yes, yeah. The reason that we don't have a tournament series coming up is that I'm going in for surgery at the beginning of the month, and they're going to rip my insides out and see what sticks.
And put them back again,
Well,
hopefully.
they said they're putting them back again, but I don't know. I'm sure bits of me must be worth something on the open market. So I will be having that operation, which will mean I won't be running a tournament in the next month. So you'll have to deal with just 2 convention level events and 1 local tournament for 2 months.
I'm out.
Yeah, that's it. You can't do it.
I haven't gone to any in months, so... All right, guys, that's it. Thanks, James, for joining us and for your tips and tricks. We always appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Next time I'll do stuff without the airbrush.
And if anybody has, the airbrush stuff was actually pretty cool. So if anybody has any advice or things that they want to tell us as far as format for our new, or a name.
A name would be great.
We need a name for this particular podcast, and we'll make sure that we announce them as they're coming up. I'm sure James will be 50% of the guests.
And if there are topics that you want me to go over, folks, not that there's a lot of you out there right now, but somebody will hear this eventually. Just write them in, let us know, and I'm happy to go over whatever.
Absolutely, and same goes for George and his assembly and terrain stuff. I pretend to know a little bit about painting from time to time, and we'll try to get some of our more hobby-based guests out on this show.
Yeah, maybe I'll start working on some terrain.
Ooh, you
on
could
the cast.
do some terrain on the cast. I bet you
We
people-
could even do casting, plastic rubber molds, plastic casting.
Ooh, I think even James would want to watch that.
Yeah, that's fun.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for us for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week with the
Whatever this is
whatever
called.
this is called. And that's a moment of silence to make it easier to edit.
so that when I'm watching the levels,
And you're
I'll
like,
know where
what
that
the
spot
heck?
is.
I don't even know why we did this. Is what
Oh, I like getting primed to paint.
Prime to paint. Prime to paint is good. Yeah.
Or Maelstrom Fan Club.
Well, that's already the name of our show.
The Maelstrom Fan
the
Club.
Maelstrom Fan Club. I have it totally 100% accepted the fact that Jason is the person that everybody likes out of our tree.
That's because he keeps his mouth shut and drinks heavily.
Oh,
See, you can't be hated for your opinions if you don't have any.
Oh, that boy's got some
He's
strong
got opinions. He just
lately.
doesn't tell anybody.
James, thanks very much, man.
Yeah, it was awesome.
No problem, buddy.
All
I'm
right,
gonna send you some pictures of this stuff so you can actually see it.
I'm looking forward to it. Did you still need me to take a picture of the top hat for you?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll take
Big
that.
time.
I'll take that
Top
for
of
you.
the top hat.
So when James was working on the top hats, he doesn't have one to look at. And if you've
like
ever
a real one, yeah.
And if you've ever seen what a real top hat looks like, it's actually fur generally, or
Yeah.
like that's been brushed in a certain direction. So it actually looks like singular
Yeah, hairs,
lines.
Yeah.
And then the top of it, it's hard to picture, but it's swirled. So
It's a radial hair pattern.
it's a radial pattern that goes on the top. So I need to send him a picture so that he has a chance to sort of use it as a reference. And I've got a really good beat up. Actually, it's too bad I wasn't at that tournament. I was thinking I should have sent the hat, one of the two top hats with Jason.
Oh, to the tournament.
Just to give to you so that you could see it, James.
What you should do is send those pictures, or when we post the cast on Facebook, we should also put up some of those pictures.
Sure.
Because that'll be nice high resolution content.
Julio.
Look.
She's ready.
She's ready.
ready.
And then there's all kinds of bits to go on her base. Have you seen this? Like, I spent a long time figuring out where these went.
Oh, I know, dude.
Turns out they go just laying on her base.
So when
They
you
go
gave
there.
that, I was going to do that as one of my competition models, and you because you gave it to me, you're like, here, we'll paint it, and I started putting it together, and I was like, how about a giant nope? 'Cause
You just nope the fuck out of that.
well, what's
one.
funny is these are actually the parts that
that
they're
have
all
fallen off. Like,
as
this
she's-
is her breastplate that goes there.
Yeah.
This plate goes on that leg. And these are just bombs that
She's
have
literally
apparently
like
fallen off.
disassembled herself so that she can get out of her
Yeah.
little cave. All right.
By the way, that's an Ashes to Ashlyn, if you haven't seen her. I think her face is fine when it's not painted.
Yeah, I think it's the angle. I think it's the angle of the face because every one of the painted ones I've seen so far.
And there's Bradigus, the bloody Bradigan.
Oh yeah, the one that nobody can give away.
I kind of like it. The problem is I don't play Bradigus, so.
See, I think he's perfect for Company of Iron.
Oh,
You use him as Kaezi Kingpin guy, whatever they're called.
Oh, I am totally proxying him as an underboss.
Yeah, that's the ones.
Kayazi underboss. That is an
There you go.
Doesn't it make
amazing.
sense for that?
Yeah, he's an amazing Kayazi underboss.
There you go.
And I'm actually kind of stoked to paint her as like a model that actually try.
Yeah, I think you
Like,
totally.
that looks really good.
And if you don't, she's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the backdrop too. I would paint her off of her base.
Oh, yes. I'm going to paint these two like this.
Yeah.
And then attach one to the other.
Yep.
We should go dark.
All right. Good night, everybody.